Okay, we'll call the regular council meeting this April 18th to order. It's 6:01 and I'll act as chair. Marina, you'll act as reporter.
No,
We have Rangos. Okay, good. We'll call the meeting to order. First item is we'll move into the closed section of the meeting, and the closure of the council will be according to the proposed topics for discussion in the absence of the public. Will be A, labor relations, and B, legal matters, and this will be subject to section 90.1 C, K, L, and N. With that, do I have a motion to move into closed?
So moved.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Yes, carried. We can move everyone with rain first.
we have just. See.
Change for the agenda.
Okay.
It's camera on.
Okay, welcome back. There's nothing to report out of the closed meeting, so we welcome you to the open meeting, and just to acknowledge our First Nations representatives. We are privileged to be meeting and doing work on behalf of the residents of Lions Bay on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish and Musqueam nations. So with that, I'll move right to let's see, there was nothing to report out. Adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Moved.
Second. Okay. Any adjustments?
Could I add to new business, candidate information on the village update?
Again?
Sorry.
Candidate information on the village update.
Okay.
What we're talking about.
Explain.
Do you want to explain now, or did you candidate update?
Well, just candidate information on the village update. In previous elections, we have given the candidates the opportunity to provide information to the community through a village update, a special village update, or a site. In the last election, each candidate was given two opportunities to.
Okay, that's fine. If that's the topic.
Why don't we add that to new business then?
Yeah.
If that's the topic, yeah, I didn't understand what you're doing.
That's the topic, yeah.
Any other additions?
No, I don't.
I just have a question. Yeah, are we getting what is there anything planned under 10B? From you?
Nothing major at this point.
And 10E, what's that all about?
Yeah, what is 10 years? There's nothing in the package.
It's a placeholder typically.
That's a new one, emergency services.
Is that to do with
We had the police report last agenda.
typing out? Okay, why don't we eliminate that? Right.
10E, okay.
Okay, any other changes?
So B,
Councillor Roger?
so B, C, and E, there's nothing. So we've got 10A and 10D as an agenda. Okay.
No, there is something in B. When we get to that, I'll speak to it.
Okay, again, let me just say, if you have something to report under 10B, again, I want to see that, included in here, at least as a point form. And so that we don't have a situation where we're listening to speeches again. So I don't see anything in here.
Councillor Ryder, I know you've asked in the past for me to provide you information. And if I've got something to report, I think I'm free to speak. There's nothing in our bylaws that prevent me from doing that. So look, the topic that I'm going to be speaking to is going to be brief, and it's concerning the upcoming Metro meeting that I'll be attending on Friday. So,
and that's it.
Okay.
as of right now, it is. If something else comes up, I'll reserve the right to mention that. I'm not going to be limited by your
I
demand.
move adoption of the agenda.
Yeah, one parallel agenda. So can we add a mayor's report on your
Sure,
attendance?
mayor's report.
And that's the only thing that's on the agenda, Ken. You don't get to speak on any matter that's not on the agenda. You're no different to the rest of us. If you want to speak on a subject, tell us the subject, put it on the agenda.
Mayor's report.
On what did you say? On something.
On the metro meeting.
Metro meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Mayor's report on the metro.
Okay, anything else, Councillor Ryder?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Councillor Brown? Anything further?
No.
Okay, all in favor of adopting the agenda as changed?
Yep.
Yes.
Pardon me. Sorry, under council, I just wanted to mention the House on Community Forum on Friday, but that'll just be a brief comment.
Okay.
If we need to put that on the agenda, I'll certainly do that.
Okay, all in favor of adopting the agenda?
As amended.
As amended, yes.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll move right to public participation, and I'll just advise you that our special advisor, municipal advisor, has asked us to keep the Q&A to 2 minutes per person, totaling 10 minutes, with any response coming in a written form from the council and the mayor. So
That is not the case. That was not the advice, that it comes in written response only from the mayor. That was not the advice.
okay, Randy, you're online, I believe.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Deal, if you could please give us your opinion as municipal advisor to the Village of Lions Bay on how we should handle the Q&A and the debate that sometimes is broken up.
Okay, I missed the very tail end of your comments there, but you should, number one, be following your procedural bylaw, which I believe that I might not have the numbers correct, but I believe provides a limitation as to how long people speak for. And so you make sure the speaker understands how long they've got to get their comments out in public. Give them a bit of a warning that they're close to crossing that time frame, and maybe cut them a little bit of slack for another 10-30 seconds. But you should be limiting the debate that way. My other recommendation was that you do not need to debate people. You're there to listen to what they have to say. You don't have to answer their questions immediately. You might want to think about the questions which are recorded and get back in a public forum to give them information that they may be requesting. The key of public participation in this forum is to not get into a debate, particularly a raucous one, with members of the public. They're there to voice their opinion, to ask questions, and it should be done in a respectful way. I'm not sure if that answers the questions that you had, but that's my recollection of my recommendations to you.
I think that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you very much, Mr. Deal. Okay, with that, we'll move to the Q&A and the questions. And is there anyone in the gallery that would like to ask a question?
Signed up at this point.
Okay, no one in the gallery. We'll look the people in the
Mr. French has his hand up.
okay, Mr. French. Well, why don't we go right to Merrick Shretsky. Mr. French, you'd have to put your hand up if you'd like us to come to you.
Yes, physically putting his hand up.
That is her.
Yeah. His hand's
Okay,
up. Yeah.
Mr. Shretsky, if you'll unmute yourself, and then we'll go to you for the first question.
Good evening. The previous council neglect of residents' wishes to stop the overspending brought the majority of Lions Bay's residents to call for changes. I wish to thank you, the current council, for keeping up with the election platform for improving administration and working on reduction or reducing altogether expenses and operating expenses of our small village. Making principal changes in a company or municipality is always hard and it meets some opposition. The decent way is to allow adequate time for new government to implement methods and solar unemployment. Unfortunately, A small group of residents who were against changes created an unfriendly atmosphere with useless complaints instead of assisting with process. Living in Lions Bay for 40 years, I know a good number of residents. We are all sickened with the negativity. Shame on them. We can benefit from the support and creative minds, not complainers who only take away the energy. And we all have so much energy, especially in the evenings. Yes, any council needs an uneven number of participants to make clear decisions. I'm looking forward to this being fulfilled soon with a constructive thinker. And thank you all for the attention.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fretsky. Mr. French, if you unmute yourself, we'll go to you.
I have unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, my comment really is more of one of support than it would be in any kind of question about what you're doing. But instead to say how much, Mr. Mayor, certainly my wife and I and many of our neighbors are of your direction in these formative days of your term, and of some of the aldermen and the alder people who are in support of the same direction that the village ought to proceed in, which I think, as we all know, was sort of an amalgamation of your experience and your colleagues' experience, both living in the village and, of course, in considerable business and sports background. So, again, I'm just really calling at the top of your meeting to say how much we support you. And as we read your sort of weekly memos or the information that we get, from the village, I think one can follow pretty closely the challenges that the new council faces, and particularly you. And again, I just really want to say how much we admire the teamwork upon which you have, sort of based your term. And we wish you every bit of good fortune in navigating or stick handling your way through the, the considerable challenges that politics here and many other places has requires. So that really is the end of my input. And again, thank you and good night.
Thank you, Mr. French. If we can move to Mr. Gravel. Anthony, if you can unmute yourself.
Here we go. Yeah, can you hear me?
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I got a couple of comments to make in connection with immediate infrastructure needs and perhaps more long term. In the immediate one, I was listening last time, and I think I heard Neville Abbott talk about drainage issues being maybe a part of a climate action plan grant application. Being a previous member of the infrastructure committee, I'd like simply to draw it to your folks' attention that the infrastructure master plan addressed drainage considerably. There's all the details you need there about what to do and how to do it. And we believed it was the most pressing immediate issue. And if you want somebody to help you in the grant preparation, perhaps you could knock on the doors of some previous infrastructure committee members. That's a comment on the immediate needs. On the long-term needs, I was looking at the package for tonight. I think it just seconded page 21, the draft water budget, and you've got a line item, engineering assessment, filtration avoidance. And I'm hoping that somebody this evening, when you get to discuss and debate that item, would like to suggest that that not be filtration avoidance, but filtration deferment. It's a technical discussion somewhat, and I know this is not the time and the place, but if you take a look at the annual water report from last year, And again, I can just give me a second here. Like pages, just 1 second. Pages 13, 14, and 25. I know you can't look at them now. Talk about the situation, and essentially the village, to avoid filtration, needs to meet 4 criteria, and the annual report clearly states that we are deficient in 2. And to be frank with you, don't stand a hope in hell of ever becoming compliant. One is turbidity, and we get what God gives us down the creek. But perhaps for the non-technical, the more important issue is the 4th one, which in order to avoid filtration, you've got to have a protected watershed. And in order to have a protected watershed, like Metro Vancouver does around Seymour Capilano, like West Vancouver does around Eagle Lake, we would have to block off hiking above Lions Bay. And I don't think the provincial government is going to prevent hikers from hiking the North Shore loops here simply because Lions Bay won't put in a filter plant like every one of our neighbors has.
We're coming up on 2 minutes just to give you a little warning.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So the idea of filtration avoidance is wrong, and it sends the wrong message to staff. It sends the wrong message to council. It sends the wrong message to the community. We cannot spend a few bucks and avoid spending the money on filtration. We can spend some bucks and kick the can down the road for a while. And just to finish off, and I know there's a limit, the reality of the situation is at Kelvin Grove, we had to spend $1 million all of a sudden to put in a wastewater treatment plant. And it cost the residents of Kelvin Grove $10,000 or $11,000 a head. If the village was to spend $5,000 on a water treatment plant, it would cost everybody in the village 10 grand. If it was to be $10 million, it cost everybody in the village 20 grand.
All right.
We got a plan for this. So please, it's not filtration avoidance, it's filter deferment. And you guys have got to understand you got a plan for it.
Thank you. We're looking forward to your input on the infrastructure committee as well. So Norma Rogers, if you'll unmute, please. Thank you, Anthony.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Mayor Barry and councillors, you all campaigned on the promise of an open and transparent government, but the way things are operating is the opposite. Council administration could adopt this list of changes to counter the perception of secrecy. Provide agendas on the Friday before council meetings. Include with the agenda written management reports. Provide timely minutes with summaries of discussions as well as actions. Require standing committees to report to council on an ongoing basis. Disclose resident selection criteria for standing committees. Make committees like infrastructure select and open to more experts. Minimize closed council meetings or portions of meetings. Require residents who speak to council to provide full names. Explain why CAO De Jong was terminated and justify the expense. Lastly, publish all resident opinion letters without threatening defamation, and so allow free speech. These changes have been suggested by residents and councillors Abbott and Reuter. Would those at the table agree to implement some of these transparency actions to create resident trust? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Norma. Leslie, looks like you're putting your hand up. If you'll unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I want to take a moment to clarify some communication that's circulating the village on various platforms about an all candidates event. I want to take us back to March 17th, a village update, very last paragraph, actually. We could have missed it. We were informed that the village of Lions Bay would not be holding an all candidates meeting. So the village itself would not be holding an all candidates meeting. And at the April 4th council meeting, CFO Ron Miller indicated that the all candidates meeting was going to be organized by Mr. David Shore for April 25th. At that time, council deemed this to be highly inappropriate, and given Mr. Shore's involvement with the campaign of one of the other councillors running for council, one of the other candidates running for council, this should not take place, and that if it did go ahead as a village sanctioned event, that an outside facilitator should be contacted. And so CFO Ron Miller was directed by council to contact a neutral moderator. And I believe at the time, Dennis Beck's name was sort of thrown around. And then we were sort of assured that council was going to vet whoever it was that would be chosen. Now, Mr. Beck, I believe, was confirmed by Mr. Miller because he contacted him, and then subsequently sort of handed the package back to David Shore, Mr. David Shore, who proceeded to continue, I think, what he started in the first place. So we found ourselves back at the beginning with Mr. Shore again organizing an event contrary to council's direction. Now, because we agree with council's opinion that this was an inappropriate event that did not follow the village policy nor the direction of council, Jamie Cunliffe chose to decline to be involved. Okay.
Sorry, can you cut that off?
Why are we cutting this off?
Please cut that off. Sorry, our CAO has asked us to cut the feed off just because it's moving into electoral.
Is that not public? Is that not a public? Is that not something one can talk about publicly?
That's what she's saying. Okay, you know what I'm going to do, Leslie? If you'll just mute for a second. This is a great opportunity for us to go to our municipal advisor, perhaps, because I know this is really important to everyone, and we all want.
I have a question. I just have, you know, at the last few, I have a question.
Okay,
and I want to know if council will please put out communication. I would like to know if council would please put out communication in the community correcting the misinformation that's been allowed to circulate via the village update, that there's an all candidates meeting. Thank you.
Okay, Randy, obviously this election is important to everyone. Democracy is at stake here. We want a fair process, and there's been lots of advice, I think, from the electoral branch and yourself as well. And if you could please just speak to the all candidates meeting and the opportunity for our candidates to have a chance to speak to the public, maybe. So I'll pass it over to you, Randy.
I'll do my best. I'm not an expert in this area of municipal law, but I'll do my best. I've had a lot of discussions with your Chief Electoral Officer, Mark Brown. I've had discussions with members of council as well as with your CAO. I think the issue here was that there was a perspective that this all candidates meeting, which was advertised in your update, village update, was going to be attended by both parties. That's what was disclosed to your CAO. As such, he advertised it as an all candidates meeting. It then started to unfold that, in fact, one candidate had not agreed to the all candidates meeting. And it was then my opinion, as well as Mark Brown's opinion, that if both candidates are not going to be at that meeting, then you can't call it an all candidates meeting. However, given the importance of getting information and allowing public participation in this election, I made the recommendation to the CAO that we advertise both events equally. We clarify in that advertisement that the municipality is not sponsoring or organizing it. This is done by the two different campaigns. And it is my understanding that that is what's going to take place after tonight's meeting in the village update. The whole issue revolves around some issues of whether or not the one candidate had agreed or not agreed. And it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I think the candidates have a right to run their own campaign in their own way. And if they decide they want to have their own meeting, I think that's legitimate. I also think it's very important that the village support the notion that each candidate has an opportunity to speak to the public and manage their meetings in their own way. The village should not be involved in this case, unless it's an all candidates meeting, in hiring or paying for a facilitator to help you do that. That's something each campaign should look after. I think you need to be very careful in these meetings to not cross over onto the political side, and that's a very thick line and gray line. And I think that, you know, I think this was handled appropriately tonight. But I don't think you want people to be talking about the campaign, you know, in a regular public council meeting. So I don't think your speaker got too far down that road. I think she's just wanting clarification, and I think that's legitimate. So future speakers, I think, Mr. Mayor, you need to be careful to have them stick to questions like we had just now, and to not cross that line into politicking, which is really tough to pull off sometimes in a raucous debate. That's all I have to say about it.
Okay, Randy, thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item number. With that, we'll move on to item number.
A question for Randy here. Just the speakers.
Yeah. We've gone 5 speakers, so we'll pick it up again after the session, or at the end of the session.
Sorry, I had a question for Randy. Randy, are you still with us?
I am, yeah.
Randy, Councillor Ryder would like to ask you a
question. So do I understand you correctly that we are going to have a village update in very short order that will set the misapprehension as to this being the traditional village sponsored all candidates event that was received that way, and that there will be 2 events and they will be listed equally in a special village update? Is that what you're telling us?
My recommendation was to simply pull down the all candidates advertisement in your update, and then to put up 2 new advertisements, one for one candidate and the other for the other candidate, indicating where, when, and how they want to have their special meetings. I did not make any recommendations with respect to correcting the record or getting into any of that stuff, because there's enough confusion between enough people without embarking on that. Facts are, it was put up, it is now being taken down, and there are 2 separate meetings, and the public have a right to come out and speak at those meetings.
Thank you.
So Randy, just a question. So if 2 candidates had agreed to enter that debate, then there could have been a meeting, but since only one candidate entered the debate, that the meeting had to be canceled. Is that correct?
The meeting could go ahead, but you should be pulling down the ad claiming that it's a all candidates meeting when in fact it's not. That changes everything. It changes whether or not you fund a facilitator and organize the thing. So I've had confirmation from one of the parties saying that we are going to hold our own event, and so that clarified it for me, and I've conveyed that to your CAO as well as to Mark Brown, that these meetings are strictly run by the individual candidates, and that there should be an advertisement that's equal to each other, separate but equal in terms of when those meetings are taking place, how they'll take place, where they're taking place, and that the village, and this is important, that the village is not involved with the organization of either of these forums.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Randy?
Can I make a suggestion? Can I make a suggestion? And I've done this in the previous council for 4 years. We have one person speaker with his hand up, one more person. I know we got to 5. Can we let the last person speak? It's another 2 minutes. What's it going to take?
That's fine. I'm good with that.
Okay.
Sorry, who else has their hand up there against? John. You're gonna have to unmute. Thank you.
Yeah, I've unmuted. My question relates to something that to my mind is more important than a lot of the things that we talk about, and that is how to keep village services going. My concern is about the loss of village staff. I'm just going to quote from a letter that I submitted to Mayor and Council last week, and I'm going to add something. I want to register my displeasure with the way staff in the village office have been treated since the new administration took over in November 22. It has been apparent to me that no effort was made to engage the staff in the transition or to retain experienced staff that were critically important to the functioning of Lions Bay Village. As a result, almost all experienced staff have left, leaving the village exposed to a collapse of services. The loss of the building inspector has directly impacted houses under construction and permits applied for by residents. This is unacceptable and could result in legal action being taken against the village. Equally important is the loss of Hayley Cook, village accountant. She resigned and was then promptly terminated before she could do a proper handover. This will have serious repercussions since she was the only remaining person who could do payroll or budgets or issue utility notices, which are overdue. She should have been honored for her 14 years of service rather than being summarily terminated. I am seriously concerned about a collapse in all village services, including operations. And I wrote this last week before I heard about the resignation of the operations manager, Nye. That completes the sort of termination or ending of all management staff in the village. So whatever happens here in the council meetings has no way of being implemented in the absence of staff. This will affect more and more residents over the next period of time. This is not what we expect from any village administration. So I leave, my question is how, I'm very pleased about Randy Deal being brought in, but my question really is how can we avoid the total collapse of village services, given the loss of over 100 years of village administration experience in the last few months.
All right, thanks for those comments. Okay, we'll move to item number 6, and that is a delegation by CAMBIZ.
Good evening. As you know, I'm more comfortable to sit here if it's possible, with your permission. If you look at the back mirror, we find out that there is still many problems for the parking lots. And as long as I believe that we have the past is going to be light for the path of way to the future. It means just we can do something about that. Lions Bay is paying much money for the parking lots as for the bylaw officer whatsoever. But as long as we respect and give the priority to the outsiders that are not the residents of the current Lions Bay to come over here with the expenses of the restless and tranquility and peace of the resident, that's not right. It's not right. I'm proposing that we have to have a parking committee. Until that time that it's going to be established, I need to ask you for a kind of bandage solution for some of the parking lots. The bandage is, I'm going to talk about the bandage, which is in my residence, face to the parking lot of the Lower Kelvin Road. But the committee of the parking lot committee should be from different people from different locations of the Lions Bay that they are impacted by parking of the outsider's car. And we can get together and sitting and talking and find out the solution. I have the solution, but it's not the time that to talk about it before we establish the committee. I'm requesting the bandage solution for Lower Kelvin Road that at least there is 3 spaces for the resident parking we move it to 5. Because in summer, the resident doesn't have any space to park. Because we have many people that are coming from outside. In this regard, we give the better parking space for the residents. And really, we need to do something as soon as possible for this matter. The parking lot, it was many years ago from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. That by my struggling, they changed it to 8 a.m. But still, we have many people that are coming over there at 6 o'clock in the morning. In summer, all of us, we have to open the windows, but we cannot do that because there is so much noise. Why we are in Lionsbury, or what we call it home? The home is the place that you rest, but we cannot rest because of outsiders. And I'm so frustrated about this matter. Therefore, we have bylaw officer 2 times per day coming over there or anywhere else that he has to go. But at 9 p.m., they are leaving Lionsway. And everybody knows. They come over there after 10, they have a party. And even though the worst thing is cooking with the fire, that because there is many trees, they are in the danger of the fire. Would you please just do something about this bandage solution, 2 parking space more for the residents, but at least we do not face with the people that they are become naked body and everything that we have to shouldn't see that. Even though there is a signage that if you want to change, go to the washroom. But they do that over. Because no bylaws or laws will be effective without the people that enforce it. And we don't have that people. Very simple. There is many solutions for these matters that please do something that making a parking lot committee and also for this 2 space or 3 space more in the parking lot for the residents. That's the only thing that I'm asking you. Hopefully it will be done before May because we are going to be swamped with the many people, especially the youngers that they don't care. We do have a noise bylaw, but when they are coming over there and just the party, music and whatsoever which is in there, noise bylaw is not effective anymore. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
I know the parking committee is one committee that we're looking forward to having complete and to address your concerns as well as some others in the village in Brunswick and in the upper village. So,
and as you know, maybe we know the problem, but we have to come up with a solution.
mm-hmm.
I have the solution after 18 years faced to the problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move to item number 7, review and approval of the minutes and prior meetings. And 7A, we have a motion to accept the special meetings. Sorry, from September 16th, motion.
Move that we accept those. I wouldn't feel comfortable adopting because it was from a previous council, but I understand that we're being asked to accept them.
Okay, second. We'll have a discussion.
Sure. Second that for discussion. Yep.
Discussion. Councilor Ryder.
But
You go first.
I think we've been in this position before, and I think I think what we're trying to do is clean up a
Exactly.
bunch of minutes. And I think the solution we found before was that
We accepted them.
you
No, we
abstained.
didn't. No, the solution before was I approved them because I was there.
Yes,
The rest of you abstained,
and that way they got approved.
and
Fine.
that way they got approved.
So we do that again?
I'm proud of that.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed?
I would abstain.
I'll abstain as well. Councilor Ryder will
I'll
abstain.
approve, that's fine.
Okay, approved.
Okay, item number 8, business arising from the minutes.
Seven.
We had two separate.
7B is regular.
Oh, sorry,
April 4th?
7B, regular council meeting, minutes from April 4th, 2023. Motion to accept those.
Second.
Discussion.
Will you have something?
Sure, a couple of easy ones, page 13 in the table, item number 270. I think there might have been me that put that forward, not Councillor Bratton. Bird friendly invasive species update. Reads Councillor Bratton provide an update.
I don't recall putting that forward.
No, I think I did.
So make that adjustment.
Yeah.
So amend Councillor Broughton to Councillor Abbott.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Ryder.
Neville, do you have anything else?
No.
No?
Abbott with 2 T's is deferrable. Not a big deal.
All right, I'll correct that. Councilor Ryder.
Sure. Let's see here. I think on page 11, under 5B, we just might want to correct in the first paragraph there with legal option, that should be opinion, I think. Under, I think that would capture that.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a few places. It says links provided to committees. There was links provided to legal options. I also noticed these, but there was no
Yeah, this
section. And then the last one should be legal opinion. So
Okay.
legal opinions, and the last one should say legal opinion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Committees is also wrong.
what about the date there?
The date. No, I think that might be right. May 20. No.
No, correct, you're right.
You're right. It's not May 24th. It was March 24th. I'm going to say it was March 24th. Good check. Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Broughton. Any changes?
No.
All right.
I've got a couple more here. Sorry, Michael, go ahead. Okay. There's a section there in that same section under 5B where it says that Mayor Barry referred to a motion from 2018, et cetera. And I think that there was also discussion that the motion from 2018 was only as to temporary absences due to vacation or situations that caused the CIO to be otherwise indisposed. That was also mentioned at that time. So I'd like that to be added in there.
And there was disagreement to that.
Sure, there was disagreement, but we're presenting one.
You note that disagreement
Yeah, but we
in the council.
we can, but that was the conversation that occurred, so that would be an accurate reflection.
Right, and there was disagreement in the conversation. So Councilor Broughton.
My understanding from our municipal advisor is that the minutes are really not designed to be a narrative, but that a record of motions and so on. So I think we need to caution ourselves about getting too involved in ensuring that every point that we made was documented. So would just be a bit concerned about that.
Sure, but we have minutes that are more complete. We're not doing those types of minutes thus far. And so if that section is going to be mentioned in there, then the other portion should be mentioned as well. Seems to be equal.
Randy,
There you go.
if you can unmute and maybe give us some feedback on this, be appreciated. So, Mr. Deal again. From the ministry.
Mayor, Councillor Broughton is correct. I did recommend that your minutes reflect only general motions, and that you steer away from a narrative in your minutes. And I think if there is some other narrative in that particular instance that Councillor Reuter is talking about, you should probably remove both of them. You shouldn't have some narrative and not other narratives. So that's why you try and steer away from that, because meetings get pretty back and forth, and it's very difficult for a minute taker to capture the essence of the meeting and make sure that everybody's been covered. What you're really talking about is covering what was the business that you agreed on and passed into resolution, not to reflect the fundamental nature of the meeting through a narrative.
Okay,
Thank you.
So should we strike that entire paragraph? Is that the suggestion?
So I'd be fine with striking that paragraph, or we'd add in the second part to reflect the discussion and the disagreement in there. I'll leave it up to you guys.
I propose we strike the paragraph.
I would go with striking it.
All right, that's acceptable to me. So we'd strike that entire paragraph, the last paragraph under 5B, the last paragraph. Okay. I think that we would then wish to.
Sorry, can we go back to that again?
Yep.
I thought I was looking at a different paragraph. Are you suggesting that the second paragraph to where it goes, Mayor Barry referred to the motion?
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree to striking that.
Well, then as per Randy's suggestion, then I would want to then, as he suggested, add in the other part, which would be that that it was pointed out that the motion from 2018 was only as to temporary absences due to vacation or situations that caused the CAO to be otherwise indisposed. That was another opinion that was brought up.
Okay, and then just add that the mayor disagreed with that.
Well, I mean, there's the mayor's point there and then a contrasting point. So we can add both or strike both. I'll leave that up to you.
Okay. We're debating in the minutes. Okay.
Okay,
Point. So which way are we going? Add or
we'll keep the paragraph the way it is. So you're suggesting we add it, and do we have a motion to add that? Would we like to make a motion on that?
I don't think we do it by motion here.
You'll make a motion to add that paragraph, is that what you'd like to do?
I'm suggesting that as per Randy's suggestion that we add that.
We're trying to approve some minutes.
Yeah, so
If two opinions are given in the minutes, either two opinions are stated or they're all gone. You can't just only have them there's mentioned stated.
I suggest that we add the second paragraph and then move on.
Okay,
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. 6E or 5E, I should say. I believe the surname that's missing there is Melissa, B-Y-R-N-E. President Lions Bay.
Okay.
are you done there, Michael? Or do you have-
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to jump in there. A similar issue on page 12 in the second paragraph on the page. Again, referring to the purportedly unanimous decision to terminate the CAO, there has been I stated at the time that that was a misrepresentation of fact. So either we can add that in or strike that business about it being unanimous.
Is that untrue?
Well, again, as per Randy's suggestion, we can add in a balanced perspective or strike both. Same issue.
That was unanimous, was it not?
I'm not here to debate the point. I'm simply here to amend the minutes.
What would you like to say?
That I would want to add in there that there was a comment by another member of council that that was a misrepresentation of fact, or we strike the whole thing.
It's true.
I'm not here to debate it. I'm just asking either we present a balanced point or we strike both.
Not following.
Same issue as the last one.
Okay, so my understanding then is that we have a disagreement, so that could be documented for the purpose of documentation of the disagreement, that
Randy, how do we handle a disagreement on the minutes? You'll have to unmute, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I guess if you have a disagreement on the minutes, then you should probably do it by motion, but I would caution you to make sure that you are consistent with how you are reporting on the minutes. And again, I would reiterate that a narrative probably is not something you should embark on unless you all agree to put something in because it's special to you. Otherwise, just report on what the motion was and whether it was approved or defeated.
So Randy, could I ask you, would it be most helpful here perhaps if we just terminated that paragraph?
Sounds like it to me.
Okay, let's go with Randy's suggestion.
Okay.
Everyone fine with that?
Yep.
And then moving on here under D, at the bottom, there is a last paragraph, and I think that should be corrected to CIO and CFO, not CEO.
Correct.
And then under F, there seems to be some, I'm not quite sure what that means, shared of resigned. Perhaps that should be just amended to say shared information as to resignation.
Sorry.
F, 5F,
Yeah.
sharing of having resigned.
Yeah, just shared information as to resignation. Could be amended that way. Just
Former councillor shared of having resigned for various reasons after 4 weeks of service.
Okay, just a grammar change.
Just a grammar change, yeah. And then I thought, I'm not quite sure about this one, page 14, under Volunteer Appreciation Week. Council agreed to avoid having Volunteer Appreciation Week. Does that reflect what occurred? I don't think council agreed to avoid having Volunteer Appreciation. I think we had some discussion and there was some debate.
We agreed not to have a volunteer appreciation event.
Agreed to defer it.
Yeah.
To defer having the event, that's right.
Yeah.
But
Did we agree? I think there was some disagreement as to that.
Well, there might be some disagreement, but we didn't.
How about we rephrase it? Council discussed Volunteer Appreciation Week, and the result was that during the by-election campaign, this would not move forward.
Sure.
It's fairly generic. Okay.
I'm okay with that.
I'm good with that.
All right. Under action and then moved and seconded that the acting chief administrative officer, chief financial officer engage Dennis Back or another independent facilitator to organize an all candidates meeting for the village of Lions Bay. I think what we had in there, if it were to be another independent facilitator, that he would report back to council as to who that facilitator would be. Although I presume it's a
No, I don't
think that's correct.
That's not the discussion.
Not correct.
We have some really serious matters on the agenda this evening, and I'm just wondering if these
Can I just
override that.
Yeah, we have long to go. We should get the minutes to.
Sorry, that wasn't correct. It was asked that Dennis would be engaged.
Yep.
Mr. Miller, explain to us what the request was.
The request was to reach out to Dennis Back. It's back. You're not gonna be an independent moderator. And I think I informed everybody that David Shore, who put it on, was willing to do that. And then if it wasn't him, to find somebody else who would be considered independent. That's where it's left.
And so you reached out to Dennis or you connected with Mr. Shore? How did that come
No, I
about?
reached out to Dennis Back. He agreed to do it. And then I put him in touch with David Shore to pass on the management of the all candidates meeting.
Yeah, Ron, I don't think we need to we're just trying to approve the minutes here, so.
That's what I did. That's what I did.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Okay, I have a different memory of that. Let me just go to something that's more important and maybe Randy can help us here. At the top of page 15, when we were discussing the solid waste and sewer budgets, it says tabled. Now, we've run into this conundrum before. as to the difference between tabling and laying on the table. I think for our procedures bylaw, wouldn't that be postponed?
It's postponed to a future meeting.
Yes. Now, tabled is a term that is meant to mean deferred, but in the language that we use in Canada, that would actually mean quite the opposite. It means it was
Ended.
ended and it's over. So what it probably should say is postponed until the next meeting.
Yeah.
We should probably correct that.
I'm not an expert in Robert's rules, but Robert's rules, sorry. But my experience has always been that if you want to, you're using the term defer an item to a future meeting, you ask for a tabling motion so that it can stay on the table, but be dealt with at a future meeting. But again, I'd have to defer and look at the Robert's Rules of Order and see what it says about that.
Sorry, Randy, there is, in our procedures bylaw, there's 5 things you can do.
Right.
And the words it uses, if you put it defer the meeting, I think is postponed to a future meeting, actually gives you those 5 options. So we've done this before, we've corrected it and not used the word table.
Well, then you should probably be consistent with what your procedural bylaw says. And then when you have a corporate officer with legislative background, and I can also do some research for you on that, then you may want to either keep the procedural bylaw as it is or amend it so that it is consistent with practice. But in the meantime, if that's what you've done and that's in your procedural bylaw, then I see no harm in using that terminology.
Okay, as Michael said, we've got a lot of business to cover in this agenda. Is there anything else?
Yeah, there is one more thing on page 16, under number 11. It seems to me under the noise relaxation issue that we have in front of us, does that accurately reflect what we did? Because there are 2 items there and they seem to be inconsistent with each other. That council granted an exception. And then the second motion is that council will sanction 2 upcoming dates and will review and approve all subsequent requests for multiple dates booked by promoters. It looks like we're granting the exception for the year. And then on the other one that we had a motion that was specific only to specific dates.
My recollection is that we only granted it for the specific dates, not for the year.
Yeah, we granted it for the
So
2
we could
upcoming.
eliminate that, because that would,
Yeah, we granted it for the 2 upcoming events, and we suggested that people having multiple events should give us a schedule if they wanted it to be approved for the year.
So essentially, the number A was defeated, was it not? As I recall, or withdrawn. I'm not sure which.
I think it was withdrawn. If we just eliminate that, how is that, Councillor Ryder?
Yeah, I'm just asking the question because the 2 appear to me to be inconsistent. So,
Okay,
yeah.
Let's eliminate A,
sure.
or not A, but the first.
The first part of A, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Anything else, Councillor Ryder?
Yep, under 13, under action item, I think where it reads Councillor Broughton and Councillor Reuter, it should read Councillor Abbott and Councillor Reuter, wasn't it? This was as to the CAC grant discussion.
That's right.
Yeah. So we're agreed on that?
Yeah.
Okay, does it for me. Thanks for your patience.
Okay, all those in favor? Approving these minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll move to business arising minutes. Councillor Ryder?
Anything's on the agenda ongoing, yeah.
All right, we'll move to unfinished business, follow-up items, 265. Follow up with the ministry regarding the vacancy tax and report back to council. Councillor Ryder.
Yeah, I'm continuing to work on that. As I said, I'll bring a written report. I have reached out to the finance ministry and also to our local MLA, and we'll be having some discussions and then bringing something back.
Okay. Item number 266, present budget to council. Michael, did you want to comment on the finance committee or should I pass that right to Ron? Did you have any comments?
Go ahead.
I can jump into it.
Sure, go ahead.
So in the finance committee and in general, the budget is very close to being finished. We have still have some ongoing questions, which we will resolve this week. We also have some questions for what we were talking about, the special advisor, how we can handle a couple certain things. We hope to get drafts of the overall budget. We don't hope we expect to get out the middle of next week. The finance committee and council, so we can start the public consultation process. And yesterday it was just a good meeting on going over the budgets with the finance committee, and they were very helpful. We had some great input from the residents.
Okay, anything further, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, the finance committee met. I chaired. Unfortunately, you were not able to attend yesterday, but it was a great meeting, I thought. We had 4 or 5 people on by Zoom, and we went through the 3 budgets, which we will be discussing a little bit later on in this meeting. I think one of the key issues for me was the fact that the 3 budgets that we're talking about are basically operating budgets, and that it's very, very clear that we have lots of issues to deal with in infrastructure. And that I'm really looking forward to working closely with an infrastructure committee and a grants committee, and those committees working together closely to really do the best for the community in moving us forward. And I think it was a very, very useful meeting in terms of lots of questions were raised by the residents who are members, and also it was very, very helpful to realize that how much interaction there is between all the budgets. So they'll all be coming forward in the next week or so. My understanding is that both the budget committee and all of council will receive the budget information next week.
Okay, great. Looking forward to that. Any comments? Any other councillors? No? Okay, we'll move to item.
Just one comment. So Ron, you're saying you will have the budget complete? I mean, because I was listening into the finance committee meeting and you said you'd have it for them at the beginning of the week. So that will then finally be here, the budget?
So I consider it to be complete. I'll give them something to review. It's probably 80 to 90% there. We've had a couple of technical questions. We still need some more backup for capital expenditures. I had a meeting with the public works manager today and said, you've got to get us that. He agreed to get it to us very shortly. So you'll have at least the draft to start talking about, to start looking at. So you're not hit with it all at one time to say, what is all this? It's not a big document, but it's not a simple document either. It takes a bit of research. But I will have a draft out by the middle of next week.
And by out, you mean to us?
Or finance committee and to the council.
Yeah. And so we don't have a council, so I presume you're going to be sharing this with us by email or how? Next week?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, middle of next week.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Okay, any questions, Councillor Allen? No, okay, we'll move right to item 271. That was to prepare for Randy Field. That is complete, so we won't dwell on that. Item 273, attend to the situation with Eric Uppeneck. Probably not pronouncing that correctly. And that's over to you, Ron. It says,
I'm not sure what that
it's completed. That's been completed.
How's that been completed?
He has the required permits.
How did he get his permits?
So they've been provided, he had to provide certificates. As soon as you get a certificate from an engineer and architect, then I can sign off on the permit.
Are you a building inspector?
Orders of the day.
Let me, Mr. Mayor, can I make it clear? So I have the
Yeah.
advice I've been given, including from the advisor, You don't have, if you can't go the building inspector route, you have to have certificates from a registered architect or an engineer saying they are in conformance with all the bylaws and building codes. They spent that money themselves and they got those certificates. Because I now have those certificates, I can sign the building permit.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I fundamentally disagree with that and completely.
What? Sorry.
I completely disagree with that.
With all due respect.
Sorry, Councillor Brown.
Whether Councillor Reuter agrees with it or not, I think it's the process that we're currently involved in. There will be some discussion in closed session later this evening. We had planned to talk about it before in the earlier session, but there has been work done by some very sophisticated village residents and bringing ideas forward to deal with ongoing challenges with the building inspector. So we've got quite a number of options happening here.
All right. So item 273, I'll mark that complete. And item 274, reach out to the independent elections officers. We've reviewed that. Is there any other comments on that?
No, I think we can strike that.
Oh. Okay, holds item 275. Councillor Broughton, Councillor Reuter, acting CAO, CFO meet to discuss the possibilities of accessing grant monies. Marked ongoing. Any comments on that?
That was again the correction, I think, councillors Abbott and Reuter.
There's Abbott and Reuter.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it was meant to be, actually, it was meant to be with the village works manager.
Okay, so it's ongoing.
Well, can we still meet with the village works manager before he goes and get some progress on this one? We're going to miss this grant. I mean, it's 19th of July, it's coming fast.
I would gladly coordinate a meeting with the public works manager.
Okay. All right, 276, the Councillor Broughton, do some outreach to grant writers, develop a list. Councillor Broughton.
This is an ongoing situation that I mentioned earlier on in terms of the finance committee, the infrastructure committee, the grant writing people. I think we're developing a group of interested residents who I think ultimately will work together in the best interest of the village. So it's just ongoing in terms of reporting who is involved. Would not be doing that at this point in time, but we definitely are pursuing it.
Okay. Can I go back to 275? 275 is specifically to the mitigation disaster grant, and I might have those words the wrong way around. Can we? It was specifically, that was for Councillor Broughton said he thought he might have someone that could help us. Tony Greville earlier said that he had members of the committee, previous infrastructure committee could probably help us, and he might even put up his own hand, hopefully. So maybe if we can just keep that one separate from this bigger idea of finding the right grant writers, and I'll get the meeting set up, and then I'll take it back to the next climate action committee, and we'd have to work really fast, but we still want a shot at that grant. I'm good with that. Okay.
Okay.
So we should set that meeting up for this week.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just put we should add in there, that's the disaster mitigation grant.
Yeah. I think it's so the climate action committee certainly can be a contributor, but certainly I don't see it resting fully with them. It's a huge issue if we can get at it. Now that's 40% grant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not some of the higher stuff that we've been looking at.
So you'll look into it, report back to us.
We'll set up the meeting and we'll take it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything further on item 276, Councillor Broughton?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll move right to reports, and we'll move to staff report. Ron, do you want to elaborate on item A1, the draft water, solid waste and sewage budgets?
I think that's number 12.
10.
I think I know 10, but do you want me to discuss this now or number 12?
Could we receive those and then we can
Sorry.
it's just looking at receiving them at this point and then.
Okay.
No, number 12 is the
Seat.
Number 12 is the bylaws.
number 12 is the bylaws that come out
Yeah.
of 10A1.
Which are they
That's right.
So we,
presented together?
I don't know that it makes much difference.
okay, do you want to, you'll speak to them when 12 comes up, bylaws?
Whatever works.
I think,
Okay, let's do that.
why don't we just do? I didn't
Okay,
do it in the order.
let's let Ron speak to it when the bylaws come up. Next item is mayor's report. I've got an upcoming Metro meeting this Friday. Other than that, nothing else to report. Council members. Anything to report? Sorry, we had one, was it the?
House Sound Community Forum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Brown.
Okay, I'm actually the liaison or contact for the House Sound Community Forum, and there will be a House Sound Community Forum this coming Friday in Gibson's. So I'll be taking the water taxi from Lions Bay over to Gibson's for the day Friday. House Sound Community Forum was born in Lions Bay about a decade ago, and brings together all the various participants around Howe Sound. So I'm very pleased to be doing that. I've also been asked to be the greeter host, I guess, to meet the people who will be heading off on the water taxi. So I feel very honored to do that. So I'll be representing Lions Bay at the dock. And carry on from there. So anyway, I'll report back on the results, but there will be a letter later on in the agenda regarding LNG, and so that I'm sure that will be coming up at the House Sound Community Forum on Friday.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments, council? No. Okay, move right to committees, and that's Lions Bay Beach Park
Can I,
Advisory Committee.
I think these two should wait till the next committee meeting.
Right. Well,
I don't know, I didn't ask for them to be on the agenda, but we haven't had a committee meeting since. I think we should go back to the committee for the next
right.
item.
Okay. I was just going to say that we're having a committee meeting tomorrow night. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's.
Yeah. And, okay.
Okay, we'll move right down to bylaws 12 and solid waste utilities bylaws that were on. Mr. Miller.
Okay, the last committee meeting, I distributed the budgets for solid waste, water and garbage collection. I've included the same reports here. Councilor Abbott did ask some questions and they were actually really good questions. I said I would get back into more details. So I've first one present is the draft water budget, which is included in the package. In this budget. Yeah.
Yes.
Page 20,
So those, sorry.
page 20 for the first now.
Yeah, page 20 for you. The explanatory notes are at the bottom. The budgets. The budget is basically the same as the prior year. We are not asking for any increase in the water user rates. The change in the costs are detailed below on the next page, page 21. In the back, or page 22 as well. Are there any more questions on this? Please, or do you have any? Do these answer your questions? Basically, what we're doing is we're saying, as far as the water budget goes, a 0% increase. Solid waste budget, a 0% increase in rates. Nothing has significantly changed. What has changed is the composition of what's inside an expense rather than more expenses. And that will happen every year. That significant change in the sewer budget, and it's not significant, we're proposing a 5% increase in the utility rates. And the main reason is for capital expenditures, which are not a lot, but there was a deficit in the past that has to be absorbed. Certain item is being rebudgeted. It's $20,000, but we want to basically break even. We are not asking for a build up in reserves. That will be an issue for the full budget, but not for just the utilities budgets. So it's really a status quo other than 5% increase in sewer. So that's all three. Do you have questions on it?
And how does that 5% compare to some of the other communities?
We can only compare it to overall.
Let's be clear, we've got zero, though, not 5. You got 5% sewer. That's a very minor part of all of this. We're actually proposing zero.
Exactly. That's, well, we've all been watching the news lately, and increases in taxes. They're big. These are not big. We don't believe we need it. I believe we're getting good control on expenditures here in the direction we're moving, and we don't need to increase rates.
I don't know how we want to do this. Suggest maybe a little bit more back and forward rather than 5 minutes each around the table. I did have some questions from the last meeting, and maybe we can touch on those in a minute. But before we go there, at a high level, I have this concern about what this budget says. It says that we have a 0% increase, but we're taking $206,000 from surplus. So to my mind, that's not a 0% increase. We should not be taking from our hard-earned surplus over the years $206,000 to present a 0% increase budget.
So there was.
In actual fact, if we paid for that surplus, we'd have a 20% increase.
This was budgeted, say 3 to 5 years ago. There's a very large surplus, and the whole intention was to draw it down over 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
And so now it's being used up, that surplus.
I would argue that surplus is needed for key infrastructure. We have a $15 to $20 million deficit looming, and we should not be passing a 0% budget and drawing $200,000, a 0% utilities increase, and drawing $200,000 from that hard-earned needed surplus. I think we should not take it from reserves. Now, whether we need to put a 20% increase to cover all of it is a different question. And I'd like to go through some of the line items, see where we can save costs, see if we need all this CapEx, and see if we can work it down. But the principle, presenting the idea that it's 0% and all's good, when we're actually taking $200,000 from reserves is not accurate.
It's money that was collected in prior years to be used in prior years, and they've agreed to collect the money and use it over the next, I'm going to say 4 years. It's 3 to 5 years. I know that. It's now we're at the end of that period. So you've collected the money to be used for those purposes, and now you have to spend it for those purposes. And that's what this budget shows.
We're about to understand some big numbers of projects we cannot do. Millions of dollars.
Yes.
So we should not. So why would we take 200,000 out of that kitty that we need?
Because this is an operating budget, not a capital budget. So the only reason you don't have the other budget yet is because of large capital expenditures, which we have to get our head around and prioritize. So operating budget.
Yes, and you've got CapEx items all through it.
Very small capital expenditure items.
Yeah, but which add up to $200,000.
You know, I think they did a very large collection, say 5 years ago, at $1 million surplus.
Okay.
It is now being drawn down, and that was the council's intent to do that.
Why wouldn't we put a small increase on this? You said your 5% equals 50K. Put a small increase on this. Now we've got 150,000 coming from surplus, and let's have a discussion about the CapEx items and decide, do we need to take 150,000, or is there any of them that maybe we don't need, or we can defer, or whatever? But coming up with a zero, putting out this message that there's a 0% increase because all's good, but actually we just took $200,000 out of surplus. It's not really accurate.
I'm not sure your thought process, but if you want to increase rates, that's fine. And you can build up for a rainy day. There's nothing wrong with that. What we're saying from a current operating budget, you don't need to do that. You have the surplus, use it up. There's a very big issue on funding $10 to $15 million of expenditures. I completely agree with that. How we do that at $200,000 isn't going to make a big difference. But that's the capital budget that we're going through right now. But from a utility perspective, it's current operations. No, but there's nothing wrong. If you decide you want to increase these rates by 3, 5, or 10%, that's your choice. You can do 20%. Our recommendation, which you were at the meeting yesterday, that question was never raised. We could easily do more. We're saying you don't need it, but a $50 million capital expenditure is a big issue that has to be addressed.
Yeah, you correct. I didn't stay for the whole meeting. Unfortunately, I wasn't there at the end. You might have realized when another call, but you did accurately state up front that, you know, the finance committee gets to look at the numbers and turn them around, tell them me. Council gets to decide whether we're going to tax for it.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and that's
what you said. That's completely fine. It's your choice.
Okay.
I'm just saying we don't need to.
All right.
If you want to build for a rainy day, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. Councillor, we'll move around the table. Councillor Broughton. Any comments?
Well, as I said, I think it's important that we move ahead with the budget as quickly as we possibly can, because we're currently in a situation where we are not collecting the funds. And I really appreciate the opportunity to review this, and am open to hearing, other concerns about it. But I think it's critical that if we're going to make any minor adjustments, we need to look at that quickly and get the billings out. The community really is very anxious to receive their utilities bills, understand that there will be a prompt payment discount, and that the community needs to get the $500,000 or more dollars that come in the early payments. So I would encourage us to move ahead as quickly as we can on this.
Okay, Councillor Ryder.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it's good politics to not have an increase in a budget. I don't like seeing an increase any more than anybody else, but there is the robbing Peter to pay Paul here. And I know that surplus is a hard fought for reserve that's built up. And, perhaps, is there any possibility to trim something here? So just to be specific here, Ron, maybe you could help me out here with under costs, for example, communications. Could you explain to us what that is under the expenditures in the water budget?
Well, it's a 0.8. Do you want me to read it?
Yep.
The prior year budget includes costs for connection Shaw internet to the magnesia plant via the underground conduit and internet for the SCADA. Current year budget is the same as prior year actual. Discuss with the manager. This is an ongoing cost. Now, we got to remember in context, this is the utilities budget. When we do the other budget, we may be proposing a very large increase for capital expenditures, we'll call it. And that's where the big dollars are. This is just current operations to get some certain bare necessity services out. When we have this discussion next week, I may be coming in with a larger number. But this is just getting the utilities done and out to the residents. A 5% increase or a 10% increase could only be $30,000, $50,000 overall. But when we're talking property taxes, a 6 or 10 or 15% increase, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're going to make sure that we're arguing in the right context here. Like the capital expenditures are in the other budget. This is simply utilities.
I'm just asking why, for example, is that communications cost up? If it's the same item as last time, jumped from 88, or was budgeted at 88 and the actual was 11,000, so it's roughly the same.
So $3,000 increase.
Yep.
We have a detailed list. It's going to be a change in internet, not change in internet providers, the change in the services and plus inflation. That's really all it is.
Okay. Could you explain what internal allocations is?
It's just, for example, there's administration costs.
Mm-hmm.
It's charging this particular fund for certain administration costs. So it's a deduction on another overall budget, and it's being charged to this for internal costs. That was actually a question that was brought up yesterday. It was a good question.
Okay.
What I will say, you're saying there's a hard fought to create these surpluses. I don't know the history, but 4 years ago, there's a loan taken out of $600,000. So there's a conscious decision. And I'm not saying it's a bad decision to borrow the money to create a surplus. I don't know the rationale for that, but that's where the surplus is created.
No.
It's the statements. It's right there.
No, I'm
not saying it's a bad decision.
we didn't loan money to clean the surface. Absolutely not.
But look at the numbers.
We loan money for projects. We approved,
Sorry, can you meet?
we approved a funding bylaw that allowed us to borrow a number now, like $5 million or whatever it was. And then as we get projects, we then go loan the money to pay for the project.
Correct.
Now, we didn't loan the money and put it, no money went from a loan into a surplus.
You borrowed money in a particular year, I'm going to say 3 to 5 years ago.
Didn't take anything.
You took out $600,000.
For a project.
No, not for a project.
Yes.
That created a surplus. Look at the numbers. This is the old numbers.
No, I think you're wrong.
So you have $1 million surplus in that year, and the intent is to use it up over 5 years. The numbers speak for
We
themselves.
couldn't have,
Joe Churchkoff is
couldn't have done
putting
it.
his hand up.
Oh,
we couldn't have done that.
Marina, if you'll let Joe speak.
Oh, I wasn't getting into this debate for the infrastructure. I did have a conversation with the public works manager today, and there are some issues that we're going through with regards to that. I just wanted to address Councilman Marcus's comment about the allocations. It's a allocation of administrative costs and public work costs to sewer, water, just for overhead that's incurred for those specific departments. It's one department to another, and it's just based on overhead, basically.
Okay.
Thank you.
but then I'll be happy to go through the numbers with you before. I can't change the prior budget. They're actual, right? So, but I do know that surplus is being used over 3 to 5 years. And that's what we've done. And it's consistent with your comments saying you borrow money for particular projects. Well, it might have been over 3 to 5 years. The surplus is not now.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get to it in the next budget when you see them, but the loans are specific projects. No money was loaned to put into a surplus. I'm positive of that. But we'll,
I'm glad to go over.
okay, we'll look into that later. So which is an interesting.
The question is, do we want to move forward on this or defer it?
No, we're going to talk this through. We're going to spend time going through this. I've got tons of questions.
Well, go ahead and put them forward now, or we can address them next week if you like.
We need to move forward on this. I mean, it would have been best to do this in a committee.
Probably, but we need to talk through some of these things.
Go ahead. Councillor Abbott, you're up.
So just on this loan thing, you just drawn my attention to. So we had draw from, this is now page 21, right? And by item, I guess it's, you've got item 6 next to it. Okay, so items, that makes sense. Item 6, this is the PRV fund. This is the loans we're talking about. Right, and this is the balance of the money on the 3 PRV projects. So last year we had $64,000, $63,434 left that we needed to spend. I can't understand why we got $24,337 budgeted this year, because that's all done and finished. So that's a little puzzling. Why are we budgeting for a loan when we don't have any outstanding projects on the loan? I think that's.
So maybe there's part of it that the payment is to be made or it wasn't completed.
Oh, it was completed.
Those are the PRVs, right?
Yeah, quite a while back. They've done quite a while back. Then you should look at that $24,000. I don't think that's there's something goofy there. You can circle that one. Did we go back to my questions from last week? Do we have some answers to them? The first one was on the secondary suites. So I asked on the secondary suites that we look into why it was running lower than budgeted last year, and I suggested that it could be because of the decision council made to allow anyone that's got a firefighter in his suite not to pay the additional charge. And I think that's why it went under budget. And I think if that proves that to be true, you're going to find out it's going to be the same this year. The same firefighters are probably still in the same suites. So we shouldn't be budgeting on last year's budget. if I'm accurate, we should be budgeting a lower number. It's a small number, but I don't think it's ever going back up.
We believe from what the discussions we've had that it will not be any different in the card than what we budgeted for last year. It's going to go back up. There's been changes in the secondary suites. So we believe it's going to be around $20,000 a day.
It is more.
That's our best estimate. That's not a hard fact rule. This is what we think it's going to be.
Okay. Did you ask the question the way I've suggested it? That number's going down last year. The actuals last year went down because of the question is, how many people actually took us up on the offer to not pay the surcharge because they're firefighters? We need to understand that, the answer to that question. Yeah, and that will
I don't know if we can get that number.
we did from last year's utility bills. People did tick a box and say, I've got a firefighter. They tick a box and then they got checked, the address got checked against the firefighter roll. And then they didn't pay that upcharge. So then the answer's there. Just need to do research.
Okay, for a $4,000 difference, I think we're assuming we can get the $20,000 versus 16. I'm not sure how much time we put into a $4,000.
I would just like to understand if people took us up on that offer on the firefighters, because it's, a bigger question, a different issue. It should be easy to find out the answer. Okay. So my other question was, and someone in the finance committee yesterday also mentioned this one, was why we are going, the forecast is higher this year than last year's budget for labor. And given that we know that we under-resourced for the first quarter.
So we do have that. So we're projecting a 3% increase overall. Although we don't have an agreement with the union or a contract, we expect it's going to be around 3%.
I would suggest we don't throw numbers out in the case the union's listening. It's not a very good bargaining tactic.
I got it. I know this is, but that's reality. And then there's the composition of the people and the hiring that we expect to do, plus the overtime. The same work has to be done in the utilities that was done. Doesn't matter how many the amount of people. So what you end up paying is the overtime to the people to get the work done, plus a different composition of people, say technician 1 versus technician 2. The numbers will come out roughly the same, plus a general inflation increase. So there's quite a good analysis prepared for the employees and overtime. But the same work has to be done.
Could we see, probably in a closed meeting, could we see the kind of labor model that's been planned versus what we did last year?
I think so. I can show you general numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem.
I think we've seen that before. There's like a labor model that says the number of this type people and they were how many of those hours. And we can compare what we had last year to where we go.
Yeah, we have that. It's all the spreadsheets.
Okay. That'll be nice to see before the next meeting. Thanks. Fire off a few more questions.
But I think my point though is the same work has to be performed every year. Just because you have less people doesn't mean you can't do the work. It just means certain people will do the overtime. So your costs will be the same.
That's in theory, yes, but I think there's a lot of stuff that didn't get done that's not going to get done. But anyway.
The important stuff has to be done.
Yeah, I understand in principle what you're suggesting. But I think given the staffing we've got now, we are not going to be able to do the same level of service. It's just a given. We haven't done it for 3 months. We're not going to do it. So this rebudgeting back and forth, this is something that is always fun and we all struggle with a little bit. On page 21, notes 3, we got some of this rebudgeting. The Upper Bayview Water Main Survey and Design. Last year we had 54,000. The actual was 49,703. And then you've got rebudgeting $10,000 remaining. Shouldn't that be $4,000? Note 3.
Note 3 wasn't OpEx. Note spend. Note 3.
Note 3.
Joe should
just talk. Joe, if you know the answer, you should just talk.
Yeah, no, I spoke with Nye this morning about that one. Most of that project was completed last year, but there's about 10,000 left that needs to be completed for that line item, which is why it's budgeted or rebudgeted at that. The full amount was budgeted in the prior year. The $10,000 that we're looking at wasn't actually expended. And so when you look at your net surplus or your surplus in the prior year, is higher by $10,000 because we didn't spend that money to actually do it. So it's been rebudgeted into the current year because we will have to incur that cost to have that Bayview project done.
Okay,
I think I'm fine.
thanks, Joe.
People are wondering, Joe Cherkoff is the controller of Lions Bay and he's into the details of the budgeting. So I'm looking at it from overall to make sure it makes sense. Grateful that Joe's jumping in to answer the questions.
Thanks for that. And so what's your feeling about this overall proposal here? Are you feeling comfortable? You think it needs more work? What's your recommendation?
Overall, you can always debate an issue and say it's $2,000 up or $2,000 down. You can always change certain expenses and make cutbacks. And as Councillor Abbott said, it's 3 months of an issue and should we plan for the future? But we got to, in the context, this is a utilities budget. Right, it's about delivering certain services. We don't expect many changes there, nor should you really be planning for the future on these sort of things, other than infrastructure. Infrastructure is a big issue. I think I've said it numerous times. It's a very big issue for us to address from a budgeting perspective, and that's why you don't have the budget yet. But from a utilities perspective, you want to make sure the services are met. These budgets do it. There's sufficient detail and work on into it with the public works manager, other people to make sure the numbers are accurate. And they will always be off by a couple thousand. You're budgeting, right? But overall, they're pretty good budgets. Significant work was put into them.
So you're comfortable with recommending these and us passing a motion on them and moving these forward and distributing the
completely, because we're talking small dollars here. Get the services done. Councilor Broughton mentioned we got to get this out. I can play with these. And we've already done it, I think, over 4 weeks now. The numbers haven't changed at all. Our explanations may be better. I'll give that to everybody. But the numbers will not change. These are tight budgets, well-managed budgets, but the utilities budget. Now, if you ask me that same question for the next budget, I won't give you the same answer. I may give you a 15% increase.
You're not referring to these motions on the table now.
No,
the next budget when
exactly the next budget as in the overall budget of property taxes and large capital expenditures and budgeting down the road. Councilor Abbott did say it could be up to $15 million. It's a good point. How do you budget for that?
All right. Any other questions before we call the question?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Move this forward.
We've got a couple. Capital expenditures. So we've got 2 survey design projects. One at 50,000, this one, and then one at 40,000, which is the second one.
What page now?
Sorry, page 22. And then in between them, we've got something that says survey design and construction of water main pipeline on Creekview Place. It just strikes me as a really low number to survey, design and construct. And it's fairly short, potentially a short piece of pipe. But I think I would like to that would not buy you a lot of pipe. So I think someone just needs to look at that and come back and confirm it is really a short piece of pipe or if that's accurate. Or if it's not meant to include the construction part.
Good question. We find that out. Okay, Joel, do you have the answer?
Unmute. Yes, I do. So the $135,000 was budgeted for the water main on Creekview. is, yeah, you're absolutely correct, mostly on survey and design. This is coming from our public works manager and what it's going to take to get this project moving forward. My feedback is that a lot of the budgeting for survey and design has been not, I don't know, accepted or willing to be spent, but our public works has said that in order to apply for grants from the provincial government to offset our costs. So a lot of this cost is the survey design professional fees.
So it's not the construction. So that note should maybe be corrected. I didn't think that you're going to buy much pipe for that, or very much pipe for that.
Construction, yeah.
So can I ask you why we don't have any actuals in those columns, like for 2022?
Oh, yes, because they didn't happen. So the numbers that were absent there, they didn't actually, they weren't incurred.
Okay.
And just as an example, so the 2022 budget, like for one thing, so when you, there's one line item here called SCADA. Above that, all these are operational items, and then SCADA was a capital expense. We budgeted $80,000 last year for SCADA. That's a flow meter for sewer and water. And we couldn't physically purchase it because of the chip shortage globally. So it wasn't in the operational budget, it was in the capital budget, but we didn't spend it. So we're going to spend it this year if we can get the chips. And so that's why you see that line item. In the items above SCADA there, we didn't actually spend that money.
And the SCADA is the fiber optic or similar cable to allow us to monitor the PRVs remotely. Those are, yeah.
And the instruments that go with it.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got just one other thing that I just maybe like to talk about. So note number 4 on page 23 down at the bottom. Okay. I don't think this explanation is very well put. And if you just give me a minute, let me maybe see if I can describe it the way I understand it. And then Joe or Ron, if you disagree. So we get from Recycle BC, it's a new thing, we get $26,000. We have to spend $5,000 of that $26,000 on educating people to recycle better. They also then start monitoring how well we're doing, and depending on how much stuff we put in the wrong bucket or how many things we contaminate, they actually come and take money back from you. And you're supposed to get down to 3% of contaminants, or whatever the term they use. And we sit around 10, I'm told. This is what I remember from last year. Well, most municipalities sit around 10, but you've got to get down to 3, otherwise this money's going to dry up. The suggestion of the Climate Action Committee, and this goes back, has been going on for years, which is start a mini transfer station in the workshop. It's happened years ago, before Recycle BC money came in. The current Climate Action Committee wants to bring that back to the conversation. The suggestion is, in the summer months, when we already have paid for and budgeted elsewhere in the bylaw budget, additional bylaw officers, and we also have the workshop, this is around the best, we have the workshop open for 3 hours on a Saturday morning, which is paid for and budgeted somewhere else. The suggestion was, and I spoke to the workshop manager, he agreed, in that same time, we could set up a mini recycling station down there. We spoke to Waste Collection Services. They want to come present to the Climate Action Committee how they could see it done. We had a previous proposal as well. So this idea that it's depending on how much bear activity, that's not really accurate. So what the suggestion here is meant to be is, so we do this mini cycle program. I think that $20,000 should go towards that, but it doesn't need to go towards funding anything in the summer months because it's paid for. But in the winter months, when we don't normally have the workshop open in the mornings, so it'll be effectively budgeting the workshop for October, November, December, effectively, for a very small amount of money. We could then, de-risk or the idea that we're actually going to get dinged because now we have a much better program, because the biggest problem is people are putting this in the wrong bin because they don't have an option. So that's what that whole plan was. It's not very well explained here, but I thought I'd just take a minute and explain that to everyone.
I think it's very good.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in there. So we have a surplus currently budgeted. And if anything, after we finalize it, it may go up a little bit, but the current budgeted surplus is $10,000. That note for comment does come back from a suggestion from the Climate Action Committee that depending on bear activity, perhaps we open up the Public Works yard and facilitate recycling there. So it's more of a labor cost. It's not set in stone. It's just a comment that if we pursue that route, we will have to pay staff to be there.
Yeah, I'm on the Climate Action Committee. I was probably my words that got in there, but it's not very well described, but I described it a little better. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's a good way to use that money. Then you actually do better recycling, so you're not going to get dinged, and the idea of that money is to forward better recycling. So it's win-win.
Provided service to people who want to recycle. Yeah.
So we can, in our comments, we can only sometimes only get it.
Okay, any other questions? We've got a lot on our agenda here and we've got to go back into closed. Do we want to defer this or are we happy to move forward with it?
I think, well, we should, I personally think we should be coming back to the next meeting and reviewing the CapEx components a little better. We've got a question about the surveys and stuff, make sure we've got that right. And, we've had a discussion about whether we think we need them all this year. We need to better understand how many projects we've designed and haven't built, right? Because there's a few. So we keep designing these projects. This is a personal opinion of mine and it's not shared by everyone, but it makes most. We keep doing all these designs, spending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then we go out for grants and we don't get the grant and we can't afford to build them. So we got to design another one. We have a backlog of design projects. Do these three have to jump over the other ones that we never got before?
No.
That's a discussion I think we should be having.
I don't disagree with you. The only thing I can add is I keep going back, this is utilities, a small budget. You've never in the past mixed the two budgets together. You do utilities budget before the main budget, and that's what we're trying to do today. You've got good points about capital expenditures and they're in the millions of dollars, but they won't impact these rates.
I know
they impact your other rates.
Okay, but to your point, Ron, these three design projects here are those large CapEx projects you're talking about. So why are they in utilities budget?
It's more of an operating, it has to be done. It's more of an operating budget. It's a good point. I mean, we will not be in a position to discuss the full budget for at least 3 weeks. It's going to take a large workup for it until we get all the capital expenditures. We're talking millions of dollars. To prioritize them, justify them, that's a lot of work. And that's why we're not there. But we're just talking utilities.
I get that. So then why wouldn't we take these three design projects, which are about the surplus you're about to draw, take them, put them in the bigger picture. How many design projects have we got? We haven't even started yet. Do we need to do three more? Discuss them in the right place in the bigger picture about the bigger CapEx. Then, I mean, that's what it's almost $200,000 you got right there, or a little more actually. Let's discuss them later, but I still think we should. I don't think it's zero. It might be nice for politics, but I don't think we should be putting a 0% increase. We all know there's been inflation, dramatic inflation in the last few years. Everything's gone up. I would much further see a small 5% increase.
It's in there. If we don't disagree with you, we've added in there, 5% increase is $50,000. I don't disagree with you. So it's in the budget. We're saying you don't have to do it, but if you'd like to do it, there's nothing wrong with it. It's in there.
Okay, so those are my suggestions. I mean, I guess we can do one reading tonight. I don't think we should be doing 3. And we should bring it back and, make the same, unless someone wants to make those changes now, but I've got a feeling there's a bit more discussion required.
All right, let's do one reading then, and then we'll move on. And we can, are you fine with that, or?
I have no objection to Councillor Abbott's comments. They're bona fide. We're just saying we don't have to do it. But there's nothing wrong with building a little nest egg for the future. And a 5% increase, we're saying in here, there's nothing wrong with it. We don't think you need it, but that's what the council does. If you want to do it, go for
We
it.
don't think we need it. We're taking $200,000 from surplus. I just struggle with it.
Okay.
It's money.
That's why you're here.
It's money that's there before.
We propose something. We're trying to be not conservative, but realistic. If you want to build for the future, there's nothing wrong with it. Throw in another increase. My perspective is we have a very big issue in relation to the capital expenditures, and we have to get our head around that. That's in the millions of dollars. We can debate $50,000. It's not going to make a big difference. If we're talking utility rates.
But this is what's in front of us now, and we'll have to decide on that. Yeah. Okay, so should we do a first reading and then continue this?
Let's do a first reading, and unless we want to propose an increase and vote on that.
We're doing a first reading at 0.
I think there's going to need to be an increase somewhere. And I would like to try to connect the costs as closely as possible to where the costs are. So would it be realistic to do a 5% increase in the water, and the solid waste is going to be up for negotiation this year. So we don't know what it's going to be next year, but the contract is up. Seems to me that there's going to have to be an increase somewhere. I'm very much an advocate for trying to minimize the increases as much as possible in light of the economy that we're sitting in, and the fact that some of our residents are facing huge mortgage increases and so on. So I really would like to try to address that where possible. But we are going to have to bite the bullet in some place. So I'm wondering if it's reasonable to move this forward as quickly as we can. If we put a 5% into the water and into the solid waste as well, and that will be reflected in the other budget regardless. It's not as if it's going to not have to happen someplace, and move this forward. So with the suggestion of having a 5% increase across the board and doing 3 readings tonight so that we can get staff billing this and getting those funds coming in.
So,
and I mean, we're going to be adjusting regardless, right? We're going to be looking at it in the big picture.
So here's hearing what you're saying. So by the way, I completely agree with you about keeping increases down to the absolute bare minimum, but do it by cutting costs, not by absorbing your reserves, right? That's the fundamental difference. Yeah. So here's my suggestion. Put a 5% increase on it and take that item of 135,000 that we know can't construct that project anyway. Take that out, right? And we'll deal with it in the bigger budget. Then you'll actually have closest damn it a 0 increase, and you won't be taking anything from reserves. And we're done. And then I think you're actually taxing for the actual utilities. You're not taking from reserves, and you're not building in a CapEx design and construct project that seems a little bit off.
It's fine.
That's my suggestion.
I don't disagree with that. Just either we're deferring the capital expenditure, or we'll think about it in the full budget.
Make that the first reading, bring it back that way, and then we do another reading adoption, or we could make that the reading now.
That suggestion and move to 3 readings, and we're going to have to come back for a 4th reading regardless.
Do the 3 readings, and then we get these utilities.
With my adjustments.
I think they're going to adjust. They're good comments. What I don't understand is that, did you say 5% across the board, all 3?
Yes.
But we've already got 5 in the sewer.
No, it's 3 different
Yeah,
budgets.
the
Budgets.
solid waste was 2.5.
No, it's 5.
It's 5, yeah.
Oh, they're all 5.
It's 005.
Oh, there was-
555 is fine.
No, it's 2.5 discount.
Yeah, it's 5.
What's the dollar figure on it?
We're authorizing a 2.5
sorry, so you must,
discount.
so it's 555. Okay.
It's a good question. Okay, so on the water budget, which is the biggest, it's a $50,000 increase.
Yeah.
But the difference is deferring the survey design of water main on Creeview Place. That's a big decision.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree.
We're not necessarily deferring it next year, we're deferring it to the budget discussion on the capital budget.
We're taking it out of the budget, which I was questioning and anyway, yeah.
So 5% on sewer, that's all that we've already recommended that. I don't think you disagree. Solid waste, 5% would be $10,000.
Okay, why don't we agree to those changes and move this forward and do all 3 readings and get these out? Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Abbott?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Councillor Ryder?
Yeah, or do we want to do 1 reading and then wait for the other items to come forward? And then do second?
We do all 3 readings.
We have to
and
do
get
4th
the
reading
utilities
anyway.
out,
Yeah, we have.
on.
Oh, we need one more.
Need one more reading.
Need one more.
Yeah.
You can't do all in one night.
But we can do 3 this evening, do the final 4th. Okay.
Sorry, I think there's been 2 things said there. So typically you can do 3 readings in one night and then adoption the next one. Although when it's taxes and I guess utility budgets, you're supposed to make sure you include public participation, which you need to give people some time. They've only seen it for the first time tonight, right? Because it wasn't in the package till yesterday.
But it was in the last.
It was in the last agenda package.
Good, fair enough. Okay.
Well, perhaps to give people time to comment and absorb this, we would do a first reading and then we could do second and third.
When you're pushing it out 2 weeks. When you're pushing it out 2 weeks.
I don't have to do the 4th reading, so do the 3 tonight.
Do 3 tonight.
Come back.
We can come back to the 4th.
Have
3 tonight with the changes that have been suggested.
Yeah, if there's any changes required, we can reconsider and go.
3 tonight with the changes.
I think we need to act.
Okay,
Yeah.
so with those changes, Councillor Abbott's changes, a motion that the water rates and regulations bylaw number 2, 1971 amendment bylaw number 626 be introduced for the first time. Motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Yes.
Carried. The motion for a second reading, the amendment, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
3rd reading on 626. Motion, second.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, we'll go to sewer rates, and
We just did them all.
No, we just did 66.
Oh, no, sorry.
yeah,
Yeah, we did
sorry, I
all 3
think
budgets.
we're gonna have to do this 9 times.
We're gonna talk
Okay. Excuse me. Okay, 627, so moved, second,
Yes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. 626 for a second reading.
So moved.
Second,
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Motion 627 for a 3rd time.
Aye.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Yeah. 628.
Okay, on to the 628 garbage and recycling. Motion for the first reading. Second,
Yes.
all in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Motion for the second reading.
Yes.
Second, all in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Motion for the 3rd reading.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Good. Item number 13, correspondence, Councillor Broughton.
Okay, I'll try to move through fairly quickly, but there's about 21 pieces of correspondence which fall into certain categories. Our MP, Mr. Weiler, has sent us Housing Accelerator Fund. And I just wanted to note that it's funding to for building housing. And it's an issue that I mentioned in the last meeting in terms of it's a huge item at Metro, huge item with our provincial government, and the federal government is looking as to how to fund increased density to a great extent. And I just want to note that our OCP review will be needed in order to adequately address this. So just awareness that there's going to be lots going on to do with housing in the big picture over the next little while.
Sorry, Michael,
yes.
the OCP review will be needed to, there's nothing here that we have to tell us what we have to do, or we have.
No, it's not telling us, no.
No,
I'm just saying that as we're looking at
just the way,
housing in general.
the way you said it, it sounded like we have to go review our OCP's compliance.
Oh, yeah.
That's not the
Okay,
case.
I apologize. Okay. In terms of our MP has been seeking meeting with council for some months now, actually. And my suggestion is that we wait until we have a full council and at which point we'll meet with our MP at the earliest time. So I'd ask that if staff could arrange, look at possible times to meet with when our MP is in town and so on, and what our meetings are. There was an item from regarding if we would like to be a host city for the Asia Pacific Summit. I talked about that last meeting. It's not likely that Lions Bay is going to host an international conference, so we're fine on that one. Wood fiber, there was a letter from Bowen Island people regarding how the wood fiber LNG. And as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, there's a Housetown Community Forum on Friday, which I'll be attending, which I'm sure things will be coming up at that time. Moving to G5, I also just wanted to mention that like the host city, the information there is like 15 pages long. Wood fiber is like 8 pages long. And I'm hoping in the future we could have links to those rather than having them all part of the agenda. Something like wood fiber, I could certainly see us having that involved because it's so important to us, but the host city application really was not relevant to us, and yet it took up about 20% of our agenda. In addition, G5, we're going to talk about CN and vegetation, and we got it in both English and French, and I think just the English would have sufficed there. So the CN vegetation is a bit concerning. It's talking about the defect, clearing the vegetation and using various chemicals on the train CN right of way. And I'm concerned about last year, they did quite a pulverizing of the area on both sides of the track, which was very helpful in terms of clearing for the railway, but it left a lot of green waste that dried out. And in terms of looking at forest fires and flash fires in the future, I really think that we should be in a conversation with CN regarding cleaning that up. If they cut down the bush, they need to take it away. So I'm also concerned though about some of the chemical application there, and was wondering if the Climate Action Committee could be made aware of that particular bit of information, and want to look at that.
Yeah, so they are aware.
Yeah,
so questions come up before. I can't remember exactly how it happened, but we asked staff to go and talk to CN and negotiate with CN and argue that we were somehow different. I don't think it went anywhere. I think we should go back. I think CN just do what they want to do.
Yeah,
we don't really pay much attention to our complaints, but maybe we should refer back to that. There's no point in repeating the same thing if it's going to get the same result. Maybe there's a different angle.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can be more forceful.
Maybe there's more awareness now.
Maybe there's more awareness. Maybe there's some sort of public engagement that helps motivate it a bit. I don't know. But yeah, I think we should start off by going back to staff, find out where it got to last time, what the final decision was, take it from there.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. G6 was LLU. We have an invitation from the group, which I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's regarding harm reduction. And it's, this meeting is on May the 9th. And if one of the members of council is interested in attending, I think it would be a really worthwhile awareness. It's on the North Shore. And when I think of the number of families that have been affected and have had loved ones touched by drug overdose death, I know of a number of cases in Lions Bay itself. And it's a huge issue. I mean, more people are dying of drug overdose than ever died of COVID in its entirety in Canada. So it's something that's really very, very important. If I was thinking quite seriously of attending that meeting, if no other council member was keen to do that.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to attend?
No, I'm happy with Michael to attend.
Okay. I'll see how it works in my schedule, but it's something I think it would be really worthwhile.
Yeah, Michael, if you're unable to, I'd be happy to also step in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that.
Sure.
You'd like to just do it rather, because I've got this house on forum as well, so let's see where we are. Okay, thank you. So Marcus, moving on to the residential items. Now, consistent with the recommendations of our municipal advisor, Mr. Deal, the letters, he looked at some of the letters, and I will speak to him at the risk of him correcting me, or with the request that he correct me, actually, not at risk. And that some of the letters are a bit brisk, abrasive, and so on, and how helpful they are. I think he questioned it as an outsider. I'm just going to talk in sort of in categories as has been my process over the last few months. We have 3 letters from our former building inspector who has provided opinions and input. We've had there's a letter from Ms. Dyer encouraging us to provide information to the local newspaper. And I would recommend that council best not be involved in election discussions at this point in time. One of the letters was removed, and we can speak to that if you wish. Speculation tax, the letter there would draw to Councillor Reuter's attention. Most of the other items are basically providing opinions and suggestions to staff, which is to staff and council, which staff and council have all received copies and been made aware of. So they're generally to do with concerns, recommendations, etc., for some of the village operations, some of the things that have been raised in the 2-minute question and answer periods earlier on. I'm going to leave it at that. I will respond to these, and they will be fairly high level responses, and refer them to those who I feel are appropriate to refer to.
Okay.
So with that, I recommend receipt of my report.
Thank you.
So Michael, there's 1 or 2 that have questions as to fact, right?
As to,
there are 1 or 2 that have questions as direct questions, and there's a factual answer to those.
okay.
You are going to answer.
Yes, I'll attempt to answer those as best I can. Yeah.
And
some of them have asked questions that have been replied to in open meetings, so I'll just refer to that. Yeah.
And you'll do what you've been doing until now, which I think was quite helpful, which was to share the drafts with us.
That's right.
And then ask for comment. Yeah,
that's right.
Maybe you could give us just a little more time, because they come all in a large bunch, and give us a day or so.
I didn't get a chance last time.
Yeah. I think I've given you Up to a day, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
maybe widen that a little bit.
I would like more than a day. I need to look at all my emails in a day.
Could be a bit of strategy in that in terms.
Yeah, I sense that.
Okay,
Not so.
thank you for that, Council
Not
Broughton.
so, actually.
We'll move to item number 14, new business. I don't have anything marked down.
Oh, yes, I added a new business item. That was regarding. Okay, in previous elections, the one I'm most familiar with was in October of 2022. All the candidates were given the opportunity to provide information to the village office, who then made it available on the village website. What my question was whether it would be possible, if consistent with what has happened in the past, is give the candidates the opportunity to make materials available that are then the village residents can access. Now, that could be done in a number of ways. They could provide the information and it would then just be posted on the village website, or it could be provided as an attachment or actually directly into the village update. So I'm just.
So I think last time we did platforms and just the brief bio and things like that. Is that
Exactly. Yeah. And what happened last time, because I think it's a longer election period, there was a chance to put in a submission, and then you're allowed to change it once sometime during the election period.
Right.
So if consistent with that, I think it just gives both candidates have the opportunity to provide information which community members can then access in one place.
Mr. Miller, you've been in contact with BC elections.
I have no problem with what Councilor Brown is saying. It's just something we have to run through the chief election officer.
With the chief election officer, okay. You just be a repository for some material.
Don't disagree. He's very good.
Yeah, okay.
There was rules last time exactly what you were allowed to do. I didn't know what to change it. Damn, I missed the trick. You guys changed yours? I didn't know that. But jokes aside, there was
there
was a clear guideline as to what you were allowed to, length of page, and I can't remember all of that.
So the message I'm getting is for the village to stay up. And so anything you like, I don't disagree that I do have to go to our right.
Okay.
I
think it's an enabling thing for the village.
You can create what you'd like to see and then ask more direct. Very open. But I don't think we want to play in that area.
Maybe you can check in with Mark Brown.
I'm not happy to.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have two candidates who've got websites. And I presume they'd be putting their information up there. Are you suggesting this?
I'm suggesting we don't touch anything without the CEO's approval.
Mm-hmm.
Anything taken out of context.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I just look at seeing this election as an extension of how the previous one ran. If it can be as parallel as possible.
Mr. Miller's going to check. There's a lot more scrutiny, so that's good. Okay, next item is public questions. We'll move again to 5 residents at 2 minutes apiece. And is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak? Okay, we'll move right to the online gallery. And if you'll raise your hand if you'd like to speak.
Jamie Cunliffe.
Jamie Cunliffe. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
You are.
Okay, I just want to give a, congratulatory, it's really exciting to hear about the Recycle BC grant. Education, I spoke with Waste Control a couple years ago in respect to the audit of our bins. They suggested the school would be a great place to start. Just have kids volunteer to bring in the bins, have somebody there go through them, and they can go home and educate their parents. But the news of the potential to actually put a transfer station in place has been near and dear to my heart since I was co-chairing the Climate Action Committee with former Councillor Barmeyer. So that's amazing news. It's great. Thank you, gentlemen, for the evening and everything that you've done, and have a wonderful conclusion. I hope your close doesn't go too long. Thanks for your time.
Next,
Fred Bain.
is that Fred Bain, FJB?
Sure is.
All right. Should have known.
Hey, I'd just like to make a comment back in the financing section you're talking about. And it's just that, to win some infrastructure grants, we're often required to provide funds to some percentage rate. And pardon the dog in the background. So blowing our reserves limits our ability to win some of these grants. And infrastructure needs have been stalled due to the lack of grants and Lions Bay funds them. So if we go and blow it on, sorry about that dog. If we go and blow it on operational stuff, we won't have it there for the critical stuff that we need. And we've got projects all over the place just waiting for a grant. And if we take away our reserve, we won't have anything to back up our, 20, 50, 80% of the grant. So I just like to leave that with you. If you could reconsider, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Fred. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, Leslie, if you'll unmute.
I have, thank you. I want to refer back to a letter that I sent to council on April 11th. Again, I'm not going to say what the contents of it was because I've already been instructed to sort of leave the election thing alone. However, at the time it was sent to council and it was CC'd to Mark Brown, Nancy Smeal, and Marlene McGinnigal, I believe her name is. And at the time that was sent on April the 11th and it was in the evening. And early in the morning, 11:17 a.m., we got a response from Councillor Broughton, who had took it upon himself to CC David Shore on that. And I just sort of had a concern around some privacy and the privacy of that communication and whether or not, I just noticed there was some comment around communications being sort of approved between all three councillors. And I'm just wondering how that fits into that narrative and also with the breach of privacy. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Any other questions from the gallery? Hassan, if you'll unmute.
Thanks. Just a quick clarification. Was the submission that the previous resident was speaking about made to council or was made in some confidential process?
That was made to all of council, as well as Mark Brown, Nancy Smeal, and Marlene McGinnigal.
Yeah, so my understanding is that that wouldn't be subject to either any sort of privilege or privacy obligation. So I just thought I'd clarify whether that was some kind of confidential submission.
It was
made.
directed directly to council, which is private in and of itself. Should not be shared with the public, somebody in the public.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we'll look into that. Thank you. Any other questions? No, okay. Anything from the gallery? No? Okay, with that, we'll move back into the close. So do I have a motion to move back into the close? Second?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Great, carried. All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone for your